Hello everyone, it's GigaBeef here, and today I'm going to show you the best M4 build that you can make with level 2 traders that is actually pretty good. So let's jump right in with a little trick that sometimes works but is market price depending, which is getting a cheap barrel. Back in the day, we used to make cheap M4s by converting ADARs over to them using the lower, but they aren't that inexpensive anymore, and we'll be replacing most of the parts with something better in this build. That said, the cheapest barrel that you can buy is the 406mm ADAR barrel at 18k from Skier. So if you find an ADAR for around 28,000 rubles or less, you can typically get this piece for a lower price than that. At 28k, it's pretty much a break even, as once you buy the gun and strip off the other components, these all sell back to mechanic for around 10,000 rubles, leaving you with the damaged ADAR lower. Repairing this doesn't make sense with the traders, but you can use repair kits if you want to pay for some experience in the weapon repair skill. Either way, it's worth checking on the flea to see if there are any cheap ADARs going. Look for ones with 100% durability that you can sell the lower on without repairing it, and those that have 30 round mags filled with ammo, as they will resell to mechanic for better prices and probably allow you to buy them down to about 25,000 rubles instead. If the ADARs are all at 30k, you can probably skip this and move on to the next part, the mechanic 2 lower. Mechanic has a few of these base components for the M4, the SCAR, the AK-74N and the VPO-209, which is useful to replenish the max durability on a weapon that is damaged beyond repair, and here we'll be using it to completely make an M4 from scratch. The M4 has many parts and is generally more complicated to build than most other guns in the game, but that is what makes it fun to do and gives it such a variety of different builds. So starting out, we'll add the M4A1 upper. This is superior to the ADAR upper as it gives 1% recoil reduction extra, which is one reason why we're not simply converting an ADAR, and all the little stat buffs do add up to make this build fairly decent at a cheap price. Next, let's add our 406mm barrel and work on the stock. The M4 buffer tube has 1% recoil reduction more than the ADAR as well, but at Skier 2, he sells a newish buffer tube that's been around for a couple of patches called the ATP. This has 2.5% recoil reduction and only costs about 5,000 rubles, which is practically the middle ground buffer tube before you get to the advanced one later on, a Mechanic 4, which gives you 4%. Onto this, the best bang for buck stock is the Chris Defiance DS150. This has one less ergonomics than the widely considered best in slot MOE carbine plus butt pad and one more recoil, but it is accessible at Peacekeeper 2 instead, and it's also much cheaper. For charging handles, the MASP is only 1,000 rubles more than the basic ones and gives +1 ergo, so slapping that on, let's next have a look at pistol grips. Here I tend to do a linked search on the M4 lower using the find parts menu to find out what we can buy, and the MIAD grip with +8 ergonomics is the best that we can get consistently and cheaply without using the flea market. For gas blocks, you'll have to complete Gunsmith 1, but once you've done that, you can buy the Wyndham Weaponry Rail gas block, which stops the front sight getting in the way. This also gives 2% recoil reduction over the standard, and every little helps. For handguards, we're now really limited as to what we can use. The black MOE has 3 more ergo than the Daniel Defense and can be bought directly from the traders, and onto this we need a 4.1 inch rail to mount a foregrip. You can again do a linked search to figure out which is the best, but at level 2 traders this is usually the RK4, as it's the first one that you can buy with 2% recoil reduction rather than 1. Sometimes it's worth a little scan through the fleet just to see if one of the AFGs is cheap, but normally the RK4 is the best. Finally, we're onto muzzles. There are a few options here. The QDC and the NT4 are decent and often found cheap-ish on the flea, or alternatively the SF3P from Mechanic 2 and the Monster Suppressor are better for ergonomics. The RC2 Suppressor is another alternative that fits to the SF3P and has 1 less ergo but 1 better on recoil, however is usually a little bit more expensive, and if you don't have Mechanic 2 yet, you can use the War Comp muzzle from Skier instead, which is 1% worse. To finish this off, you can add a cantilever mount for +1 ergonomics that hardly costs any more than the normal one, and use this to fit a laser or a light, the cheapest being the NC Star for a standalone laser, or the Balder Pro for a laser and flashlight together. All the standard mags are -3 ergo for the M4, so use whichever, and I opted for the brand new Elcan Spectre HCO sight, mainly because it's super cool and I wanted to test it out. Obviously, you can use whatever you want here. Overall, that gets to 49 ergonomics and 46 recoil, which is pretty awesome. Without the embellishments, the base weapon comes to 140k, which, yeah, it's kind of on the high side for level 2, but a bunch of this is the suppressor. In about the low 40,000 rubles for both parts of the muzzle. Without this, we're looking at about 97,000, which sounds a lot better. Once you've added a foregrip, and the RK4 is kind of expensive early at 10k, it's not really that far off the cost of building some of the other cheaper weapons in 5.5.6. Now, there is an alternative way to do this at Mechanic 2, but it's totally fleet dependent, so is not as consistent, but the SOPMOD M4 barter can be really good value. If you can find pro kills at 70k, even 75, 140 to 150 for the base gun is decent because of what it comes with. 46 ergonomics and 49 recoil isn't actually that bad, but we can sell some of this other random stuff for about 25k, which makes the pricing even better and upgrades some of the others, mainly changing over to the ATP buffer tube like we did before, and maybe an RK4 foregrip if you want to. Leaving it as close to the trader build as possible comes to 48 ergonomics and 47 recoil, and we get an LCAN scope with it too, which generally costs upwards of 40k on the flea. If you were looking to use this gun with the LCAN anyway and would have bought it from the flea at 40, then this build is often a steal if you're smart with your pro kill purchases. I haven't had a lot of time to practice with the M4 yet, but I had this one clip which I'll show you before we finish up the video. Alright, so we're going to actually go counter to the flow of the map. So did someone else. Dude, that felt kind of pristine. Not gonna lie, but that M4 actually felt quite good. I wasn't expecting that to feel so nice. That felt like full throttle Chad. Been a while, boys, but maybe we're back. Yeah, because the mechanic M4 barter is super OP, you should take advantage. Oh, yeah, we did already, actually. We bought an LCAN through it. It is good. It's still a little bit more expensive than this build, but because I built this build up from scratch. Yeah, if you start with the other one as a base, it can be okay. It's got 206 barrel on it, though, so which is, depends on what you want. Yeah, with this hollow's so good. Hollow looks sick. It does look so good, doesn't it? Yeah, if you want an NT4 suppressor, and you want an LCAN, and you want a short M4, that build is pretty good. It gets better once people stop selling the pro kills for so much, to be honest. But the NT4 suppressor's not that good. And the 206 barrel's not that good. But like the whole package is great. And there's like loads of little ancillary bits you can sell. Reserve spawns are so rough. Yeah, I know. That was the one that I was worried about. I kind of knew I thought he'd be running into the pawn buildings. Like normally that's where people are. They normally like are there and then they run into the pawn buildings from there. All the shots seem to have landed. I know. I don't really know how that occurred. I think dude was after shooterborn kills though. The oldie VPO with a red dot. Why'd I jump like that? I thought he was behind me. Okay. So if you like 5.5.6, you might love the G36C, so go and check out my full rundown of all the 5.5.6 weapons here. Otherwise, as usual, a big shout out to all my patrons, and as always, have fun in your raids.